Hey, how's it going, guys? Domino Paris 21 here, and back to bring you guys another deck profile. Here, hanging out, watching some animes. You guys can put that back on. We're just watching some anime and stuff, hanging out and stuff. So I'm here with IamVanguard himself. Say something.
Hi.
Wow, so low profile, low key. And Rin 76 in the back there. But yeah, we're just hanging out here, like I said. So me and David here actually share the same Sanctuary Guard Dragon deck, with the exception of a few different choices that we chose on personal preference, which we'll address as we go through the deck. But this is my deck, of course. But yeah, Sanctuary Guard, of course, definitely regarded as one of the top tier decks for this format right now. And despite all the new support for Royals, I really still think this is really the prime way to play it, as long as this guy exists. Which
I mean, if Swordmy didn't come out, honestly, I don't think Sanctuary would have been as good. I think Swordmy just brings every Royal Paladin deck like to its prime right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can love or hate this card, but you definitely can't deny the fact of, you know, how much of a foundation this can bring for Royals. And this is really what Royal players really wanted for a while, just easy counterblast one.
Easy counterblast, get a free card. I mean, it's...
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not going to get too much in depth in Swordmy beyond that, because it's been talked about too much. So yes, anyways, proceeding with the deck itself. So the starter that me and David play is Milius?
Of course, some people do like to run the Jewel Knight.
Tiffany, I think, yeah.
But honestly, I think this is the best choice.
Yeah, so like...
I mean, just my perspective wise.
No, I agree. And a few things that I say with Royals, like Swordmy is basically the foundation of the deck, just being able to freely tutor the ones. And then Twin Sword is like your win con, because it allows you to extend some of your plays, especially with your big attack columns you create with the deck, of course. So being able to search any of your twos, which is, you have a lot of useful twos to actually go into depending on what setups you're going for some of your turns, just really helps with the consistency for the deck in general. So this has been really testing well, but I think that the Jewel Knight Tiffany is also a good starter too, so it's really your preference on how you really go with your deck, but we definitely like this starter the best. So it's pretty straightforward.
I mean, it just brings out more options, and like especially like later on towards the game, just so much useful.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, like being able to recruit the Twin Sword consistently, especially like later in the game when you really need it to make that push, is very important for me. So you guys know how much I like consistency. For grade 3s, pretty simple. We have your 4 Sanctuary Guard Dragon. Not much more to say here.
I mean,
and then 4 Guarantee. So,
crap.
I mean, he's crap, but he's a Sanctuary Guard.
Right. Honestly,
you know?
I mean, the only reason why you would run Guarantee is because of the name, honestly.
Yep.
Of course, I am running Ultima at the moment just because of the 1k difference. Honestly, I think it's really big, but...
And he actually does something.
He actually does something. But honestly, I think Guarantee is a really nice choice as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, when you have that heir to the family, and just because he just shares the name of the family, which is why he has the rights to all the, you know, powerful things the family has, but he sucks. But, you know, it's what it is. That's kind of how I look at it. But anyways, yeah, so I run 7 grade 3s. I think because Guarantee is not that great of a card, I want to ride Sanctuary Guard preferably. And having the 7 grade 3s, although you rely on Stride so much, is not too much of a problem just for how I play the deck anyway.
I mean, honestly, it just gives you more space for grade 2s is one. And then 2, you have Stride enablers, which are Laurel Knights, which, yeah. I mean, these do the same job.
Yep. Actually, what am I standing up? Anyway, so next up for grade 2 is pretty much the most important part of the deck. You have your 4 Swordmy, of course. I mean, you guys should already know what he does by now. Special Counterblast Jewel Knight, get a Jewel Knight grade 1, it's amazing. Free tutors are good. Then you have like your win con in the deck, essentially. My favorite card in the deck, really, Knight Twin Sword.
Just brings out some plays.
Yep, a big thing that I really love with Regali is the fact is that since he does power up the front row, it makes Knight Twin Sword a lot more powerful. Just because anything he brings out is a big beater, which the main target you usually want to go for a lot of the times. You usually sometimes can go for Swordmy to extend for some bigger play options, which I can show you in a bit. But the 12k attacker, just because usually, in reference to Regali, so with Regali, if you guys actually don't know what this does, is continuous ability. Your front row gains plus 3,000 for every grade 1 of the card you have on board. So essentially, you're usually going to have 3 boosters, which gives plus 9 to your front row, so he attacks for 21 by himself. So it's really good. I mean, it's easy.
And of course, full column wise, he'll be technically a 28 attacker, which is over 26.
Yeah, if you get 26. Because what's nice is like, well, you can obviously call it out and it doesn't have to boost. So your first attack can be boosted, hit for 25, which is you want to, you know, which is ideal. And then this can hit for 21.
Right.
Plus also having him with Twin Sword on board, you can hit 21 unboosted, and then you can recruit.
And then recruit something else.
Or you could recruit the same card if you have another one and hit for a bigger number. So really phenomenal card in combination with Twin Sword.
Have you tried running Knight of Fragment in the deck? Because that's one tech choice I do run that you don't run.
Yeah, Knight of Fragment is definitely a choice, just because the deck can be a little heavy in Counterblast, so it does give you that.
That's what I felt like, because like you said, this is the main core of the deck, so I do need Jewel Knight flips so I can activate him.
Yeah, for Swordmy.
A lot of situations I never got the damage check that I needed, but you know, it's personal preference.
Yeah, I see some people that play it, especially that you do play Opal. I don't really think I need it, and plus the fact is that he does hit for 11, which only makes 20k by himself, which is not as strong as the 21. So it's really the 12k that really makes a difference for the plays like I mentioned, because you really want to have a good standalone beater that can hit for that ideal premium tier number by himself.
Agreed.
So it's really kind of the preference, but I don't play Opal, so it's even more reason to not play the Fragment. And then the card
this one, I think this is like one of the best cards that you can play with Swordmy.
It's really amazing. Starlight Violinist. So when it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, that's a big part. That's a big important part. So it works on Vanguard or Rearguard. Catalyst 1, Soul Blast 1, Secure Call it 2. Any 2. Good, it's generic. So, I mean, you can easily call this, get a Swordmy column, which is nuts. So it's like an easy +2. And also, she's very important because really for how yeah, it's a shit. I don't know, it's hard to tell anymore, but important thing with her is a big thing I do with this deck is I do play the grade 2 game a lot with people, especially that this deck can really die to really bad matchups, control matchups, like heavy control matchups like
Link Joker is always like the best
Link Joker is a big one, Narukami, like brawlers essentially, Kagero, Gear is kind of sort of, but like it just allows me to get a very easy board very quickly. So then usually I can be able to stall out a little bit and still get like 3 attacks off every turn to really pressure my opponent. So then once my opponent hits that like 5 damage mark higher or gets to the point where I feel like I can really go for game with striding, my first stride as Regali in combination with Twin Sword, that's when I start going in with everything. So yeah, it's a really good solid lineup. I really can't find any changes with it. So 12 grade 2s, which is another reason why I run 7 grade 3s.
I mean, except for the Fragment, I think that's pretty much what I have at the moment too. It's really...
Do you pretty much take out the 12k attackers for the Fragments?
Yes.
Okay. And then grade 1s, it's like not too exciting.
This should be the same.
Yeah.
Stride enablers, all sides.
All signed, finally got them. They're a good investment because, you know, we're going to stride.
I feel so.
4 of these.
Flip perfect.
I know some people like to argue that the Jewel Knight one could be essential just because
it can go to rear guard 1 and then 2, it has the name on it.
Yeah, it's Jewel Knight. It's honestly could be preference, but the reason why I decided to keep these in is that
Twin Sword.
Yeah, it's Twin Sword, but like these actually came in clutch for me to get the Counterblast I needed. Because there was actually a few games I needed to recycle a single Jewel Knight Counterblast because that was the only one I had for Swordmy.
Right.
Because I was facing like a control deck and then I needed the Twin Sword, so these came in clutch for me, but like these can easily change to Jewel Knight Perfect, so it's kind of like the preference from there. Then 4 Symboling.
4 Symbolings.
Card's amazing.
I mean, I know that most people do like to run the limit break enablers because of the fact that Sanctuary Guard, but honestly, when you're playing the grade 2 game, I just don't see the point anymore. Like before, you know, it was easier for me to use Sanctuary's effect and push for big damage, but I think this is just as effective.
Yeah, this is better. That's like having 4 of because I do see myself going into this often with Swordmy. Basically what he does is when he's placed on rear guard, if you have 3 other Jewel Knight rear guards, you rest them, give a Jewel Knight +10, so you can really make some big plays with it, like even early game, if you have the board for it, which you usually kind of don't a lot of times, because you need all the Jewel Knight rear guards to do it, but like if I'm playing the grade 2 game with someone and I'm really trying to just extend my plays to keep pushing, you can Swordmy into this and just make a much more higher tier column, make a bigger push. And
especially it's hitting for 19 if you use the boost effect.
Yep, so it's like key number, especially if your opponent wants to play grade 2 game with you, which they usually do. It's kind of funny how people mimic that. But also too, it's like it's another play for Knight Twin Sword, like I mentioned, because like Nine Twin Sword, like I said, you usually want to get 12k attacker, but a lot of times if you can actually extend the play so that you can still attack boosted with your opposite column. Use Twin Sword to get the Swordmy, call this out, maybe behind the Vanguard usually, and then you can give the Swordmy plus 10, so that now you can hit 28 as opposed to 21 unboosted, so that could really make a difference in a lot of situations. So that's why I want to play 4. Just I want to make sure I can guarantee access to that kind of, I just want the accessibility for
guaranteed
that.
access.
Yeah, guaranteed plunge, yes. And then I just have this for my 5th Jewel Knight, Shelly. This is usually the first thing I call out for Swordmy. Just 10k attacker. I was actually thinking about like cutting the Cymbeline and running 2 Shelly. I think David was doing that for a little bit. But
honestly, I just feel like running 4 of this was much more efficient.
Yeah, David tried out the 2 of these, 3 of these. I still kept the 4 because I just thought this was too good. And like I said, I want that accessibility. And then last one, the tech, Hidden Sage Miron.
That's what I do too, but it's a really good card. I mean, especially in this deck, because if you guys don't know, Sanctuary has an effect where if you discard a card when you write it, and you can search for a grade 1 or lower.
Yeah, which at the time when he first came out, it was like okay, but like now you actually have a decent target to go into, so you can extend your hand and just get a free card, which is nice.
I mean, you don't use your soul that much anyways, except for the Starlight Violinist, so...
You have just enough, like if you use your starter, you'll have just enough to use this and 2 Starlight Violinists, but yeah, so it's a good target.
Choice. I like it.
Yeah, it just gives you some more value out of him. And...
This is probably where we're really different on.
Yeah, this is where a lot of people will differ, and everyone has their own different reasons for it, and that's the trigger lineup. Now, for me, I do play stand triggers, Jewel Knight stands.
Which I thought weird because, you're not really the type that runs stands in decks like this.
This is the best stand. It's a Heisman cat. It's a cat doing the Heisman. It's awesome. So yeah, he's Heisman cat. But yeah, 6 stand, and 6 crit. Jewel Knights, all Jewel Knights. So it does emulate, and 4 heal, duh. So it does emulate the ARG Nats first place deck. I really like the idea with the stands, just because, like I mentioned, a big thing again with Regali, since it powers up the front row units, it makes the stands even more powerful, because even the lowest, unit, or it's not 9k, even 8k, plus 9, hitting it with the stand trigger, with the plus 5 can easily hit for 22 minimum, so it hits that. So you hit for a 15k guard for a second attack. So that was really attractive for me. And also, even if you're playing the grade 2 game with somebody, you usually should have a full board or a decent board. So
swing with 1 column, get a stand trigger, stand it again, swing.
Yeah, I may actually cut 2 stands and just run more crits, because crits will still always be more consistent. But I still like having access to that. The stand definitely come in clutch for you offensively. I know the arguments, of course, for crits is the,
I do run 12 of the Jewel Knight crits and then 4 heals.
Yeah, so you run those. Because I know that one thing we talked about was control matchups. Because this deck can really die to a bad control matchup.
I do agree. So, and then there is situations where you can't really play the grade 2 game sometimes, so I feel like that's why crits were more effective for me.
Yeah, and also too, like I mentioned, to really make the stands, to get the most value out of the stands for the main purpose of even running, more than 4 in the deck, is the fact that you want to maintain at least 3 boosters to get that plus 9, which, if you do face the control matchup, a lot of times, despite having Swordmies and such, you may not always have the 3 boosters being able to maintain effectively on a consistent basis, so it does kind of hinder the power it can give, which is the main purpose having it in the deck, which is why I may consider cutting these for 2 crits and still keeping the stands in. But I see some people opt for 8 crit for draw and such, but I just feel like the stands are just really too powerful, especially in the testing I've done with the multiple locals I've been very successful at. The stands came in so clutch to really close out games quicker for me, so honestly, if you do face the control matchups, I just sit on the grade 2s, because I'm usually more efficient than my opponent a lot of times, recruiting a board, and a lot of times, especially for most decks, they have to stride or do something, to be a generation break in order to do anything. So these 2 cards are just are phenomenal. Because essentially what I do, I try to get 7Ks all across the board. If I stay grade 2, I'll just get rid of the starter, because at that point I don't really care. I make 16 across the board and just keep hammering down my opponent with 3 attacks per turn. And then when I'm ready, I start going to I just go first stride and then just push them.
I guess that's where the other debation comes in between this and Tiffany, because you know the Tiffany can just go into Soul and give power, so you don't really have to get rid of it.
Yeah, and it's also good, like, 'cause if you are playing that game, you can make the push. But another thing with Tiffany is, because when you look at the numbers, like I said, usually your front row is going to get +9. So if you go 9k with 7, you only make 25k columns, which is mediocre. But Tiffany helps make that extra push to make those 28 columns, which are really more ideal push columns. So I really do like the Tiffany as the starter if you are running just heavy crits in general, just because it just makes it so that you can always have some tier columns when you're making that push. Seeing that you don't have stands to really extend some of your offensive plays and such, but I don't know, but that's like a main argument that you can make between the two starters. Like I said, it's really preference, but there's usually a good reason to choose either one.
I do agree.
Now, next is the strides. Well, obvious is obvious. So
I think it's like almost the same too.
We got 4 of these. I know some people like to opt for 3 and play like a good blade, but I don't know. I just found the 4th actually came in handy one time because I was like a really back and forth game with someone, and I never used the good blade ever.
I mean, I feel like if I play the build currently that you have, I would definitely run 4. But if you're running like Ultimiles or different Vanguard, I think it's important to run an extra good blade just in case.
Yeah, that's actually a valid point. Like I run pure Sanctuary
right,
lineup.
so it's easy for you to get into those.
Yeah, and again, the reason why I run the pure Sanctuary lineup is because he is the main win condition of the deck. He's like, stride me and I win. So you definitely got to play this. The next, we do have the 2 Sanklos in the deck.
It is a big finisher. It baits out perfect guards.
It baits out perfect guards too. And there are times where you could get really bad hands early, where you know maybe you're not able to go to Regaliate as effectively with the full board. So maybe you can just, like after you Regaliate once, and your opponent somehow maintains a low damage, maybe they guarded it really early or they just healed, they're at usually a low damage count. So maybe instead of going to Regaliate and then pushing with Knighted Twin Sword, which you may not have access to later, then you can just go Sanklo, pressure your opponent maybe a little bit, and probably get to make up for damage.
And then get back into Regali.
Yeah, get back to Regali, because that's one thing I see people do though, is like if they're behind on damage, they go into their big plays with Twin Sword, but then Twin Sword gets killed or knocked out, and then because they end up using their starter, and then they're out of plays.
Right.
So then when it's time to make another push, you know, it's not as optimal. So that's why I still like, that's really my uses for Sanklo. And then the new card, Ultimile. I really like this card, even though I never used it. I did feel safe that I did have him.
I mean, having him just brings out. I mean, you know, you can get like use his ability. Get one of my plays I usually get into it gets +5, and then of course with Starlight's effect I can get like a 12k attacker or a Swordmy. So I just thought that Ultimate was really good for that point, and then of course it still gives the plus power. So,
+3 to front row.
Yeah. So it nets you an extra attacker, and then you know depending how many counterblast or depending on the situation, it just nets you free cards.
Yep, and another thing too is that people can really underrate. In terms of the numbers compared to Regali, in certain situations it's actually the same thing. Because like I said with Regali, if you have 9k and 7k, I mean it's 25, which is basically just, you know, like a 21k attack, 21k column, because you're usually dealing with the 11k Vanguard anyway. But if you think about it, if you have a setup like this, where you have a 12k attacker, right? You go Ultimile, you have a 12k attacker, 2 7s, we'll just say we have 7s here. Maybe you can go into Swordmy, get a 1, or you can go Starlight Violinist into here. But usually you could get like a Swordmy or 9k, and then you have this on board. So he gets +3 to front row. So the fact he's a 12k, he's already hitting 21, and then he gets +5. So you're still hitting that 21k number, but now you're able to recruit something. So you know that's where I think people tend to underrate this card. I feel.
I think it's a really great card, honestly. But Sanctuary is just like. Depending on the situation, like recently I faced a witch deck which changed all my stuff. Like those kind of situations, Regali is a better stride to run into. But a lot of situations, I feel like Ultima is like one of those really good cards.
Yeah, because I mean, there's like I never really used it, but I was glad I had it. He's very necessary, but I kind of want to make that point across because I think people kind of underrate him. They immediately count him out because they go, Regali makes better numbers, which honestly, it's not always the case. No. Regali is good because of this card. If this card didn't exist, Regali won't be as powerful, to be honest.
I do agree.
So that's pretty much it there. Pretty much already, well, the plays are pretty simple, especially with Twin Sword and everything. So yeah, that is the deck. It's pretty simple, straightforward, but we definitely have a lot of explaining we do all the time. So yeah, guys, as always, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Subscribe to IamVanguard if you haven't, which I'm sure you guys already have. And yeah, have a wonderful day, guys. Thumbs up.
I mean, I personally like.
Say bye.
Bye. Image the victory, IamVanguard.
Imagine the victory. Whatever.
Yeah.